Here's something you might not know: anger eventually burns out, but hatred doesn't. In fact, Seneca warned that hatred is a fire that feeds on itself. Unlike anger, it doesn't just fade with time, it grows, poisons, and destroys. So how do you know if what you're feeling, or what others feel toward you, is hatred, not just anger? Today, we'll uncover the 6 clear signs of real hatred, and why it's far more dangerous than anger. In Stoicism, anger is seen as a temporary madness, a flash of emotion that clouds our reason. Hatred, however, is anger that has been nurtured, fed, and kept alive. It's not just a reaction, it's a mindset. And if left unchecked, it can quietly rule your life, ruin relationships, and even consume your sense of peace. That's why understanding the signs of hatred isn't just about protecting yourself from others, it's also about making sure it doesn't take root in you. Because, as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. So let's dive into the 6 dangerous signs of real hatred, and what Stoicism teaches us about conquering it. Sign 1: Obsession beyond the moment. Anger is usually tied to a specific moment. Someone cuts you off in traffic, insults you, or betrays you. But hatred? Hatred lingers. It revisits the offense again and again, replaying it like a broken record. If you, or someone else, cannot stop thinking about how someone wronged them, even months or years later, that's not anger anymore. That's hatred. Marcus Aurelius advised, you have power over your mind, not outside events. When your mind constantly circles back to an offense, it means the offense owns you. Example: think of 2 coworkers. One gets annoyed when his colleague takes credit for an idea, but he vents and moves on. The other broods for months, brings it up in every conversation, and plots revenge. The first was angry. The second is consumed by hatred. Sign 2: Dehumanization. Another sign is when you stop seeing a person as human. Hatred strips away empathy. Instead of saying he made a mistake or she hurt me, the language shifts: he's a snake. She's a monster. They're nothing. This is dangerous because once you dehumanize someone, almost anything can be justified against them. History shows us this clearly. Wars, oppression, and cruelty often start not with anger, but with sustained hatred. Stoicism reminds us that we are all fellow citizens of the universe. As Epictetus said, we are all actors in the same play. Forgetting that is a sure sign that hatred has taken over. Sign 3: Pleasure and suffering. Here's a chilling difference: anger wants justice, but hatred craves suffering. If you feel joy when another person fails, when they're in pain, or when life punishes them, be careful. That's hatred. The Stoics would call this a corruption of the soul. Seneca wrote that to rejoice in the misery of others is to poison yourself with bitterness. Why? Because it turns your happiness into something that depends not on your own actions, but on the downfall of others. And that's a trap. Sign 4: Long-term plotting. Anger is impulsive, it lashes out, often regretting it later. Hatred, though, is patient. It plans. It hides behind smiles and politeness, all while quietly waiting for the right moment to strike. If someone is willing to spend weeks, months, even years secretly waiting for an opportunity to get back at someone, that's hatred in its purest form. The Stoics would call this a complete surrender of reason. Because now, instead of focusing on virtue or growth, life becomes a chessboard for revenge. And as the saying goes, when you set out on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. Sign 5: Spreading the poison. Hatred rarely stays private. If someone constantly speaks ill of another, dragging their name into every conversation, recruiting others to share the same resentment, that's not anger, that's hatred. It spreads like smoke, suffocating not just the person who feels it, but everyone around them. Epictetus warned, when you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Hatred avoids this, it points outward, never inward, and tries to build an army of resentment. If you notice this in others, or in yourself, it's a red flag. Sign 6: Identity built on resentment. Finally, the most dangerous sign: when hatred becomes part of who you are. Instead of just being an emotion, it becomes an identity. Someone might define themselves as the one who will never forgive, or the person who always remembers what was done. The Stoics believe that our true identity should be built on virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Hatred replaces those with bitterness, envy, and spite. And here's the most tragic part: when hatred becomes who you are, you end up hurting yourself far more than the person you hate. You become your own prisoner. So, let's recap. The 6 signs of real hatred are: obsession beyond the moment, dehumanization, pleasure in suffering, long-term plotting, spreading the poison, identity built on resentment. Unlike anger, hatred doesn't fade, it feeds itself. And that's why Stoicism calls us to cut it at the root, before it takes hold. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like your enemy. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever caught yourself holding on to resentment longer than you should? What helped you let it go? Share your thoughts in the comments, I read every one. If this video gave you a new perspective, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, and share this video with someone who might need it today. Because at the end of the day, freedom is not found in holding on, it's found in letting go.